This is the story of John 9, all the way through the whole chapter. This is Jesus healing a man who was born blind and giving him sight. I think that's a pretty cool miracle. I can imagine healing a lame person, that's pretty big, but bringing sight to someone who's never seen anything, if you can imagine if you were really blind from birth, kind of like Helen Keller, and all of a sudden you could see, half of your brain would be like a supernova just trying to process all of the stuff that you were looking at. So we're going to look at this incredible chapter. Now, normally, we go really slowly through the Bible, but this chapter is one story, so we can't cut it up. And some of you who were gone for a while, we have Terry back with us. Jack is back with us. He's cancer-free for now, which is a wonderful... We've got Don back with us. We've got John and Barbara back from us. And some of you were gone for a while, and we never left chapter 8. So, you're back, and you really haven't missed anything. So we're on chapter 9 now. Let's look at chapter 9, verses 1 through 2. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi or teacher or master, his disciples asked him, why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? When we see something we don't understand, our tendency is to ask why. Why did this happen to me? Why is the world the way it is? Why do good people have bad things happen to them? Why? I think it's always better and spiritually more mature and healthy to ask what. Since this has happened, what should I as a faithful believer do? How should I react? What constructive things can I do facing this? Rather than asking why. Mr. Rogers was asked once, what do you tell kids when there's a natural disaster on TV? He says, watch the people who are helping. Watch the people who are helping in the natural disaster, because that'll give you courage and that'll encourage you to be someone who can help also. So here's this question. Why was the man born blind? We'll look at what the Bible says about that. And I wish I could tell you that the Bible's clear about this one, but it's not. There is tension in the Bible, and that's what makes the Bible true. Martin Luther, 500 years ago, said that's one of the main reasons he believed the Bible to be true, because there is tension. Can you lose your salvation? Depends when you read the Bible, yes and no. Are we saints or sinners? Kind of both. There's tension in the Bible, already and not yet, all those kinds of things. And that's the world we live in. This is why we can relate to the Bible in the first place. Well, the truth is, sin can cause misfortune. Who here has made a big mistake in your life and you paid for it? Sin can cause misfortune. So sometimes misfortune is caused by our own mistakes that we make. Not all misfortune, however, is caused by sin. There are really good people who just get hit by a bus, and it's not their fault. There's people who get washed away in a tsunami in Bangladesh who did nothing wrong to cause that. So, sin can cause misfortune, but not all misfortune is caused by sin. So they're asking a question here, who sinned? They're assuming that some sin did cause this. Well, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. Deuteronomy 5:9, Exodus 34, 6 through 7, said that when there's grievous sins that are committed, the Lord punishes not only them, but people down to the third and fourth generation. Who thinks that's a little bit hard to look at, especially when it shows up twice in the Bible? It's like, whoa, to the third and fourth generation? But in Ezekiel 18:20, it says, no, only the people who sin will suffer the consequences for that, not the people who are in the next generations. Well, you see, the Bible there's tension here. It's not a contradiction, it's tension, because we live in that tension. The truth is, if your parents were alcoholics, the likelihood of you struggling with alcohol is much higher than for those that didn't have parents who were alcoholics. If you had violence in your family, there's much more likely that you will commit violence in your family growing up. There are things that tend to get handed down. Wendy and I are blessed to have 4 parents who stayed married for a long time and didn't marry anyone else. Who thinks that makes our marriage easier? Because we had role models that were really good role models for marriage. There's family blessings, generational blessings, and generational curses that come down the line. And we need to deal with them. Sometimes we say, I'm never going to do that when I grow up. And then when you grow up, you end up talking just like your parents. And we tell ourselves we're not going to do that. The truth is, all of us have family blessings, some things in our family which we want to pass down to the next generation, and family curses, things that we don't want to pass down to the next generation. And we do need to draw a line in the sand and say that's it, and cast those generational curses off. So there is tension in the Bible with these. So during ministry time today, when you take communion, you come up for prayer, and if you have a generational curse that you'd like to cast off, we can pray for that. Because you can start new. God is the God of new beginnings. You can shake the Etch-a-Sketch. If you don't know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, just ask an older person. But you can actually shake it and start over and say, no, I'm not going to let that pattern continue through my life. I've got family members who, there was one divorce in our extended family, and all the kids got divorced multiple times. And that was kind of part of the system. But who thinks that can be broken? It can be broken. It can be broken in the next generation. So do pray about that. If you have something you would really like to get rid of in your family line. But also be grateful for those things that were handed down that were good. What if you've got a high standard of education in your family? That's a wonderful blessing to pass down. There's lots of good things, and there's other things we need to get rid of. So verse 3, it was not because of his sins or parents' sins, Jesus answered. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him, in order that I might show God's power by bringing sight to this blind person. So Jesus says, it wasn't him, it wasn't his parents. God set this up so that you could all see this. It would end up in John 9, and we'd be talking about it in the Western Hemisphere, which nobody dreamed of at the time. So you have this incredible story where Jesus is taking mud from the ground, spitting on it, putting it on this blind person's eyes. Now, if someone asked you to pray for blindness, I wouldn't recommend this. That would probably just freak them out. This was more common back then, but what he was doing was not showing us the right way to heal blindness. How did God create Adam? He reached down into the clay and the dust and breathed life into that human body. Jesus was imitating his Father, showing that life can be brought into earth and we can heal this blind man. John 9, 4 through 5. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I'm here in the world, I am the light of the world. Now we're going to look here at how the physical, seeing, and the spiritual are connected. We do that with our language, don't we? Do you see what I'm talking about? What did I just say? Did I see? Seeing, we often connect with understanding. And the physical and the spiritual in God's world are not separated. Unfortunately, in North America, we tend to treat the physical as the real world and the spiritual as an optional elective class if you want to do that, but it's separate. And if you bring the spiritual into the physical, people get testy with you. If you bring the spiritual into the public sphere, the public schools, if you bring it into certain places, that's not the right place for the spiritual. But to God, does God see any difference between the spiritual and the physical? Him, it's all the same. And so eyes and vision and seeing and understanding are very closely connected. You're looking right now at the front of the church. We've got this incredibly beautiful stained glass window up here, which is always a good thing if the sermon gets bad. Just look at the window and talk to Jesus. That's if I start to bore you, don't go to your phone. Just work on that. But visual is really important. Advertising uses a lot of visual, doesn't it? There's a lot of seeing in our understanding. Psalm 139 says, the psalmist says, I will praise you, God, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Repeat after me. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. He goes on to say, marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. This is a great memory verse. For anybody who's got low self-esteem, this is really good. I don't know how we can teach kids to have self-esteem without telling them this. Because without the spiritual side of self-esteem, that God made us in his image, if you're not good looking, popular, rich, or something, who's to say you've got value unless your value is intrinsic in God's blowing breath into the dust that we're made of? We are worth something because God made us in his image. I think we have a generation of young people who need to hear that. So many of them are medicated because they haven't heard it. And they don't understand that. And they have self-esteem seminars. Well, how's that going to work without God? Because if they're not made by God and they're here by accident, why should they think of themselves as anything more than just a mistake or a random collision of atoms somewhere? So I'm going to look for a moment at physical vision. And please keep in mind, this is also spiritual because Jesus is showing us by bringing sight to a man born blind that the two are connected. Human vision is fascinating. You're looking at me or at the window if you're bored with the sermon, but either way, but you're looking past your blind spot. You have a blind spot right in the middle of both eyes, caused by where your optic nerve goes into your eye, where there's no vision, and your brain fills it in. That's fascinating. You've got blind spots in both eyes where your brain actually fills in the spot with what should be there, which is pretty fascinating. Color perception variance. We don't all see colors the same way. And it's been proven by the fact that there's a lot of men, especially men, who can't tell the difference between green and red, which is hard when you're driving. Green, red, it's kind of important to know. So we have different ways of looking at color, and colors don't exist in nature. It's just different wavelengths of light, which our brain interprets as color. The Lord gave us that. Why? Because it's more beautiful. A black and white stained glass window doesn't do much. Also, we are omnivores. We eat everything. And with color, we can tell when things are spoiled, when things are ripe, when the right color hits, when we're farming and doing all those things. We can tell when the right time for things is. We can tell what things not to eat because they've gone bad. Since humans have we're like bears. We have a huge omnivore kind of diet. And God gave us that so that we could tell the difference. Your sclera. We are unique among animals at having a large sclera. That's the white part of the eye. Why? Because we're social creatures. And with a big sclera, with a big white part of the eye, you can tell when people are listening to you or not. You ever start listening to somebody and you start to get bored and you just sort of zone out and you realize you catch yourself and then you come back? I think counselors must have to deal with that all the time because they listen to people all day. But you can tell when a person's looking at you. You can tell when a person's paying attention. It enhances our communication. A lot of our nonverbal communication has to do with the whites of eyes. And you can watch when people aren't paying attention to what you're saying. And so you can repeat what you're saying. It helps communication. There are no other animals with whites of eyes as big as ours. And God gave us that so we could connect better with each other. Also, so we couldn't pretend like we're listening when we're not. Peripheral vision sensitivity. You have very clear vision in the middle, and your peripheral vision is fuzzy, but your peripheral vision is better at picking up motion than in the front. That's really good when you're driving on the 405. And it's really good when you're hiking out in the woods and there's a grizzly bear. Wendy and I were hiking in Canada just a few months ago, and there was a moose closer to us than I am here to Jennifer. Jessica. Got the J right. Jessica. Sorry about that. I was looking at Wendy. I said, you see, my eyes weren't focused. My eyes weren't looking at the right time. And I'm really glad we saw the moose when we did, because moose kill more people than bears in North America. Peripheral vision. I played football. It's really good to have peripheral vision because there's people running after you. I played defensive end. I was always hoping for quarterbacks with terrible peripheral vision because I love to, never mind, we'll get into that, but still. Your resolution. Human beings can see 10 million different colors. Except for men, we only see 8, but no, I'm just kidding. Human beings can see 10 million different colors, can differentiate between colors. Also, your vision, on average, is 576 megapixels in resolution. There are only a few spy satellites that have resolution that good. The kind that they put up in orbit that can read license plates and stuff. Human vision is amazing, absolutely amazing. Your muscles in your eye are the fastest muscles that you have. Your eyes can move very quickly and focus very quickly. Visual information processing. Who's run out of space on your laptop or on your phone? What's always the culprit? Videos. Videos take up lots of space. You could walk into your 4th grade classroom and you'd remember the tile on the floor. That's stored in there. Half of our brains are used for visual processing. Think about that. Half of our brains are used for visual processing. That's absolutely amazing. You were born looking at things upside down. Babies are born, and everybody's upside down. Why? If you ever look at a camera, when you go through a lens, it inverts when it goes into the brain. And a few months later, with babies, their brain turns it around. And now we see right side up. Your brain corrects for what your eyes see. Also, babies see really fuzzy because they have to start processing all of the stuff so that they can start to learn how to process visual cues. Eyes versus a camera. A picture, a photograph, has uniform resolution, but you only have clarity in the middle and fuzziness on the outside with good motion detectors. This is why when people are asked, when you go out at night and you see a full moon, how many moons would it take stacked on top of each other to get to the top? Just throw out a number. This is not a rhetorical question. How many do you think? How many? 26. Anybody else? How many full moons would it take to get to the top of the sky? How many? 50, 20, over 100. Why? Because when you look at the moon, it looks bigger. Why? Your eyes zoom in. This is why it's hard to take a picture of the moon. You ever try to take a picture of the moon with your iPhone? It's tiny. But your eyes focus in on it, and the moon's really quite small. But we think of it as bigger because when we look at it, we focus, we see this big full moon. Human eyes are amazing at that. The species that have the eyes closest to us are fish. That's just a little thing to throw out, in case you wondered. The trade-off for color, the fact that we can see bazillions of colors, the trade-off for that is we have terrible night vision. We have some of the worst night vision of any species. which is why we stumble around in the dark, which is why we need night lights to get to the bathroom, which is why a lot of our poetry talks about light and darkness, walking in the light, walking in darkness, be children of the light, not children of the darkness, those kinds of things. Pupil size. Your pupil size adjusts and dilates depending on the light. Also, if you're attracted to someone. If you're attracted to someone, your pupils dilate. So that's just a giveaway in case, you're looking at someone who's, attractive, up they'll go. Blue-eyed people, like myself, have an advantage. We have a survival advantage. Blue-eyed people see better in the dusk, quite a bit better. Why? Because our ancestors came from the northern climates where the sun was not as direct. And we had to be able to go hunting in the dusk because the dusk often would last a long time. So people with blue eyes actually do see a little bit better in the dusk. Why do I share all these things? Because Jesus saw the eye as important. He says in Matthew 6:22, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad or greedy, your whole body will be full of darkness. We filter with our brains how we see things. Who thinks that two different people can look at the same event and one have a positive view of it and another have a negative view of it? They did a study with TSA people. This psychological study they did with one of the Ivy League schools. And what they did is they had hundreds of people come through TSA and they checked them ahead of time to make sure they didn't have like half-full shampoo bottles and all that kind of stuff. No, nothing that would set it off. So for a couple of hours, nothing was setting off the TSA thing. What happened was they started to search more carefully for other stuff. Because in their minds, there has to be bad stuff coming. So they just got more picky. Who's seen that with bureaucrats? Where they just get more picky because they're not seeing enough bad stuff. And we do that with our vision too. We often filter things through the eyes of faith or through the eyes of negativity. Here's some practicalities. Get outside and use your focus. Urban people live up to 93% of their lives indoors. We weren't designed for that. And we get isolated when we're indoors all the time. And virtual reality is never as good as real reality. Get out and garden. Get out and go for walks. Get out. Wendy and I have found, and she takes pictures of everything. I've learned to be very patient on hikes because she takes pictures of every flower, everything going along. But we've learned that the more we take pictures of things outside, the more we pay attention to things. The more we're looking for things, the more our eyes are open. Spend time outside. Your eyes, by the way, will get better. Any ophthalmologist will tell you the more time you spend outside, the better your prescriptions will be. That's just what we're designed for. We're not designed to be indoors all the time. Clarity. Clean the lens. This is why we have to read the Bible. People think if you read the Bible all the time, you'll get legalistic. You won't. The Bible will deconstruct almost every opinion you have, and that will clear the lens. Human opinions don't stand up very well with the Bible. Political opinions, philosophical opinions, whatever opinions you have about whatever. The more we read the Bible, the more our vision clears. The more we see things as they really are. There's something about being in the Word. The Word itself says, this is a lamp unto our feet. And the Bible has wisdom that is way beyond us because it's cumulative over centuries. And these are the rock stars of spirituality, thinking, everything else. And we get to benefit from their insights. I don't read the Bible to confirm my opinions. I read the Bible to test my opinions. And I'm open to them being wrong. The Bible will challenge you. The Bible will say, are you really sure about that? Maybe you should see this a little different. Whenever people ask Jesus a question, what did he do? He didn't ever affirm their opinions. He said, you're asking the wrong question. Ask it this way. Come to a higher place. The word metanoia, the Greek word for repent, means come to a higher point of view. Come to a higher mind. Open yourself up to being wrong about things. Proving you're right is overrated. Have curiosity and humility, not false certainty. You ever get with people and you get into a little bit of an argument and you very, very clear to you very soon that that person is more interested in being right or winning the argument than actually being right? Winning arguments is not that impressive. The older I get, the more humble I am about what I know, and the more I trust this book. And that's what I want to continue to grow in. I want to trust this book more and trust my own druthers less. I still will have some biases. I'm convinced that the Green Bay Packers might just be the center of all evil in the world, but I try to get past that. Being a Vikings fan, this is our Super Bowl ring. It's been tough. But the Lord is healing me from that because I found people that are saved who are Green Bay Packer fans. So watch your caption writing. What we see and what we say about it. Is your caption writing, as you narrate your life to yourself and to others, is it all complaining? Is it negative? Is it seeing the hand of God in things? Is it seeing the image of God in people you don't agree with? Is it faith-filled? Is it based on the promises in the Bible? Or is it based on our own egos? I just think that some humility would be a really good thing here, to trust the Bible more, to trust ourselves less, to take ourselves less seriously, to take the Lord Jesus Christ more seriously. And wouldn't we all get along better if that were the case? We all had just a little bit of humility. I think it'd be awesome. Watch your caption writing. Light therapy with the light of the world. Spend some time SON bathing. Spend time in Jesus' presence. I have a challenge in my prayer life, and I'm working on it right now. My prayer life tends to be too informal. So then I try to make it more structured. The problem is when I make it more structured, it turns into lists and journals. And I send the list to God, and we talk about it. And it's all fine and good. But I walk away from the prayer saying, did I spend any time in the presence of our living Lord? And very often the answer is not as much as I should. Spending time in Jesus' presence. You say, Jesus, I just want to spend some time with you right now. Let your light shine on me. Let me just be with you for a while. I don't want to be entertained. I don't want to be task-oriented. Just spending time with Jesus. The thing I love about this altar rail up here, we've never had one before. Those of us from the well, we've never had something like this. But people spend time here, just in the presence of Jesus. And I think that's something, who thinks we should all add some more of that to our prayer lives? That would be excellent. There's a movement called Curcio, and if you ever want to talk about going on a Curcio weekend, you should talk to Dave back here, Tamara. Dave, you want to wave so people know who you are back there? And Tamara's up here. Where's that? Linda or Kim. Linda's here. Kim's back there. There's a song they sing called De Colores, which is a song about the beauty of the colors of nature. And they sing it in Spanish. And it's a jubilant song about the beauty of vision and colors and the beauty of the spring. And my favorite part of the Wizard of Oz movie is when Dorothy walks out of black and white into color. And when we spend time in the presence of the Lord, our lives color up. And we start to see the beauty of his creation around us and in each other. We love each other because we see the hand of God in each other, not because we agree with them or because they can get us somewhere. It's all about that, coloring up our lives. De Coloris and The Wizard of Oz. I live on Main Street. And an illustration, I'm going to close with this, invite the worship team up. I live on Main Street, and I'm about 5 or 6 blocks from the pier. And once or twice a week, generally, for whatever reason, I end up walking down Main Street to go to the post office, to go surfing, to walk with Wendy and see things, go to see the sunset, whatever it is. But depending on the time of day, one of the sides of Main Street will be in the sun, and one will be in the dark, depending on where the sun is. We don't get to choose where our life journey begins or how it ends. We all make the same trip. Some people walk on the sunny side to the pier, and some people walk in the shadows. We all make the same trip, but it's your choice whether you're going to walk it in the light or not. And the point of evangelism isn't just to get people saved, which is great. The point of evangelism is to get people to cross the street and walk with us in the sun. How many of you know people that spend their whole lives walking in the shadows, in the dark? They're making the same trip we're making. And we want to invite them to walk with us on the sunny side of the street. Pay attention to that next time you see a street with one shadow and light on the other side. I'm going to close with this Bible verse. Jesus replied, there are 12 hours of daylight every day. During the day, people can walk safely. They can because they have the light of this world. But at night, there's a danger of stumbling because they have no light. The Gospel of John is the gospel of love and light.